our broadcast this morning on the Art of Adaptation, a report about strategic philanthropy advice. And we're just waiting for a few more people to join the broadcast, and we'll be starting very shortly. Okay, well, thank you very much indeed, everyone, for joining us this morning. The webinar today is about the art of adaptation, why talking about philanthropy transforms advisor-client relationships. My name is Catherine Tillotson. I'm one of the managing partners of Scorpio Partnership, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Keziah Cunningham, who's a senior advisor here at the Charities Aid Foundation, working with ultra-high net worths and family offices. We're also joined by Alexandra Loydon, who's head of private client services at St James's Place Wealth Management, and Allan Holmes, who's head of the trust team at Deloitte in the Cambridge office. Now, the purpose of today's presentation really is to talk about key findings from the report, The Art of Adaptation, that the Charities Aid Foundation, Cath, is launching today. And one of the key findings in that report is that among private clients, around 2/5 have taken advice on philanthropy, and a further 2/3 suggest that they want more advice. The research was conducted among 1,000 high net worth individuals and asked a whole range of questions about how they structure their philanthropy and who they work with. So we're delighted to be joined today by a panel of professionals, all of whom have provided philanthropy advice to their clients. But what I'd like to start by doing is just asking Keziah Cunningham from Cath, the Charities Aid Foundation, to talk us through the subject of philanthropy advice. What is philanthropy advice? What is strategic philanthropy advice? And really set the scene on how Cath works with its clients to provide this kind of advice to clients. Keziah.
Thank you, Catherine. I think philanthropy advice is a very broad area and have different interpretations for different people. I think a number of advisors see it as the structuring side. A number of advisors see it as the legal or tax side and kind of efficiency side. And I think there are other players in the market who are looking more at working with clients to develop strategic kind of philanthropy plans and to deliver those. So it is a very broad area, and I think it's about bringing together different players, the right players for the right client. You asked for what is strategic philanthropy. I'm sure there are many interpretations out there. For us at Cath Philanthropy, it's about seeing philanthropy as an investment into society, and the approach isn't a million miles away from mainstream investments. It's absolutely vital, and I think this is what makes it strategic. Is you're thinking big. You're thinking that you want to create some big positive social change. You're looking at something, an investment in society that has a big impact. You're looking at something that's scalable, that you can take to scale and possibly replicate as well, if that's right for whatever the cause is, an approach that you've chosen to take. But I think the starting point has to be able to identify what it is you want to do and to develop your focus area. You know, the world is a very complex place with a million and one seemingly intractable social problems. And I think any advice that we give is to clients is, we're not trying to boil the ocean. Is to figure out, what it is that you want to do and what is the best route to do them. I could talk for hours on this.
Well, it's interesting what you say. So you're talking about strategic philanthropy as helping individuals to achieve their goals when it comes to philanthropic giving or volunteering or however they choose to structure their interaction with charitable causes.
Absolutely.
Which is an area in which you provide a professional advice service.
Yes, here at Cath we provide both the giving vehicles, donor advised funds, DAFs, various shapes and forms to fit and tailor to various clients' needs, whether they're UK based, whether they're non-DOMs, whether they're global clients, whether they're UK, US. So we have both very effective and very efficient giving vehicles. We also provide advisory around trying to help clients articulate some of those aims and helping to inform them in the same way that you wouldn't just chuck an investment into the marketplace without knowing what you wanted it to do and understanding some of the challenges and the expectations of the returns that you can get. We can work with clients to help them articulate that and start helping them define what it is they want to achieve.
I think it's interesting because I think many of our participants in the broadcast today, in the webinar today, will probably come from other areas of professional advice. So tax accountants, legal professionals, financial advisors. Before the webinar began, we asked the participants, do they see it as their role to help their clients get the most out of their philanthropy? So coming at the same subject from different perspectives, around 81% of our audience today believe it's their role also to support clients to get the most out of their philanthropy, which I think is interesting. It raises a number of challenges around where are the dividing lines between different kinds of advice. Alex, I'd like to turn to you now. I mean, how do you integrate philanthropy advice into the professional advice services that you provide for the clients of St James's Place?
Well, at St James's Place, we take a very sort of holistic approach in the way that we position our proposition and advise our clients. And I think anybody who is in a position of advising clients, whether that be from a legal or a tax or a financial advice perspective, needs to take a broad approach and broad view when they come to advising clients. It's about providing that holistic service. It doesn't necessarily mean that as an advisor you need to be able to encompass or cover every element of a client's requirements. It's a case of being able to identify what a client needs and facilitating the appropriate introductions to the individuals who can provide that advice. It's also about adding value and helping you cement relationships with your clients. It depends how you view your position, but I would say that as an advisor, and certainly the partners at St James's Place manage their client relationships in a way that they manage and facilitate a client's requirements.
So how does that work in practical terms? So you have a very broad network of partners within the partnership, or have a wide range of clients. What would be a sort of typical interaction that leads the partner to start talking about philanthropy advice with their clients?
Well, I think as partners of St James's Place, they're providing first and foremost financial management support and advice to their clients. So they are financial advisors first and foremost. But in terms of the advice that they're providing, they are not just looking at the financial aspects of a client's requirements, but also the estate planning, the tax requirements, ensuring that a client is maximising on the benefits and reliefs that are available in terms of their financial management. And they can call upon various expertise within the St James's Place Wealth Management and Partnership, and also external professionals that we and they that we all work with. A typical sort of situation would be that a partner will sit down with a they identify that there is an area for specific advice, whether that be tax or philanthropy, then we will facilitate, or they will be able to facilitate the right introductions.
So effectively, the capability to deliver advice around philanthropy is core to the wider range of services that St James's Place can offer, and that partners can tap into that, but there are also areas that you recognise that it's not your expertise, and that's where you would call in others.
Absolutely, and I would say that philanthropy is an integral part of our proposition to clients and philanthropists, people who are giving to charity, and we fully appreciate that not all our clients are giving to charity. It's a conversation that might not be appropriate for all clients, but it's certainly something that fits in into our proposition, and very often we find that where clients are giving to charity, they might not necessarily be doing it very tax efficiently.
It's interesting. I mean, one of the findings in the report, Allan, was that 2/3 of the high net worths who took part in the research, there were 1,000 in total, so 2/3 is a substantial number, felt that the key area where they felt they could get more advice was around tax and the tax benefits. And certainly we often hear in the course of our research that it's the tax advisor who's the first port of call. When you're thinking about how you're going to structure, whether it's your business or whether it is directly philanthropy, it's often the tax advisor who's the first point of contact with professional advice. What sort of range of questions and topics, when clients come to you and philanthropy is on their agenda, what are the typical questions that they're coming to you with?
There's actually a huge range of questions that come in, and it can be some very simple questions, such as making cash gifts with gift aid, and then it builds up from there. And there are some who come in who actually decided that they want to set up a charity or something for a particular purpose, and then the discussion involves around what is the best structure to use and who are the best people to use in putting the structure together. It is that broad. As Alex mentioned, they don't always think of the best tax efficient means of doing things. For example, they may think they want to give cash. When you look at things, they may be better off making gifts of stocks and shares and things like that, which are pregnant with gain. And so it's a very open conversation.
I mean, certainly from the research, if we're seeing such big numbers who want more tax advice, it would suggest that maybe the range of advice around tax is perhaps a little bit patchy across the landscape as a whole, and not every firm is perhaps as proactive and engaged with the topic as maybe you are at the Deloitte's office where you work in Cambridge. I mean, is it when a client comes through the door, perhaps on wider issues, would it be quite natural for you to raise the question of philanthropy as part of the discussion that you have with them?
I think philanthropy is always raised as a question, and the reaction of the client is often pretty clear whether the conversation is a very short one or it expands into something much bigger. And often the client might have a particular fixed view in that I'm going to give on death, but actually when you talk things through with them, they decide that actually I want to set up some lifetime giving, etc., etc.
Right, interesting. I mean, second on the list of areas where clients wanted more advice was around understanding causes. And I think this may be an area that presents some challenges, both to you, Allan, from a tax perspective, and you, Alex, also from a wider financial advice perspective.
Yes, absolutely it does. But I also think that it opens the opportunity for advisors to then recognise that the client's requirements perhaps extend to working with an organisation like the Charities Aid Foundation and using their advice service to support clients in that position.
It was interesting. One of the questions from one of our audience members, Maria Andrews, is how do clients create a short list of charities to invest into? Keziah, how do they?
I think probably there are a number of answers to that. Clients are as individual as the rest of us, no matter what their levels of wealth. And it also depends, I think, very much on how experienced they are, how sophisticated they are, where they're on their journey. The clients we tend to work with, we advise them to follow the kind of principles that I mentioned earlier, to start with articulating what it is that they want to change, what is their aim and objective, and then focusing down. I've worked with many clients who have had a vague idea. For example, we want to be able to reduce poverty amongst rural communities in Malawi. Okay, that's still pretty major, and there are different approaches you can take. So it can be quite a probing process. But I think it's for the advisor to be able to understand the client's values and what's important to them and what their priorities are. But we would advise clients to yes, focus their area right down and develop criteria in terms of, okay, so they've understood the space a little bit, they've understood some of the challenges, and they're beginning to look at the players and where are the gaps maybe in support, whether that support be funding or whether that support be influencing or advocacy or whatever it might be. But I think it's about developing criteria, hard criteria and soft criteria. I think it's as much about the feel of an organisation, a charity, the characteristics of it, how it does what it does, the approach that it takes. Is it smart? Is it innovative? So I don't think there's a very simple, quick answer. And many of the clients I've worked with have sometimes been overwhelmed by choice. And it is about, okay, and then almost becoming paralysed. So it's about unlocking. I think a lot of the work that we do here at Cath is about inspiring individuals and encouraging and facilitating so that their goals are met through us, and we're kind of in the background helping that happen.
But really what you're outlining is how you bring the strategy into strategic philanthropy advice. Interesting, you raised there that it can take clients some time to come to their position on how they're going to give. This is a question I'm going to ask to each of you separately, and I think there's also a polling question on this. So when your clients come to you, Keziah, do they come with a clear idea of how they want to give? Yes or no? In general?
No.
What about you, Alex? I mean, in your case, perhaps it's not such a topic of conversation initially, but...
Well, it's an interesting question because I would say yes, but when you delve a bit deeper, no.
Right. Allan?
I would absolutely agree. That was my hesitation. They think they might do,
yes,
but actually once you start delving, there's a smarter, better way.
Interesting. Allan?
Yeah, I think I have the same point in that often it's no.
Often it's no.
Often it's no.
Right. I'd be interested to see the audience views on that question as well, and I think there is going to be a polling question coming up shortly for you to respond to. We'll be very interested to hear your views as well. So moving on, the strategy is around helping clients to narrow down and to understand not only what they want to give to, but how they want to give, where they want to give. So picking up from that, how would you then work with others? Because obviously once you've got the strategy in place, there are going to be elements around structure, around financial management, around tax, around ongoing monitoring. This shouldn't be something that happens once. It is an ongoing process. So the client has got to this point where they want to actually action this plan. What then happens?
It will depend on a variety of criteria, but we work with advisors right across the market, whether it be wealth managers, whether it be tax specialists, whether it be lawyers, and sometimes we will those advisors will refer clients to us, so that particular advisor might be involved right from the beginning, which can actually be incredibly helpful, and we almost form a team around that particular client to be able to deliver the solution in a kind of more holistic, kind of joined up way. And then I think it is very much about putting the client at the centre of it and continuing, as you say, it's not one-off, it's ongoing. And as we all just put the panel just kind of agreed that often clients will start with one kind of journey or roadmap, and then as they become more experienced, or as they test the waters, or as they say, actually, maybe I need to be a bit more open to different approaches. Maybe I need to have a slightly higher appetite for risk. That there will be changes. The route isn't fixed right from the beginning, and I think it's vital that kind of core team surrounding the client, it feels confident to bring in whatever specialist at whatever time. Cath Philanthropy Service isn't capable of providing, financial advice, investment advice, structuring, etc. So that's where we work with advisors and bring in, and then on the, if you like, the more kind of charitable side, if it's appropriate and if it's of interest to the client, we can bring specialists in at the other end of the spectrum, whether it's looking at full-blown kind of monitoring and evaluation and impact measurement. To understand has that philanthropic desire actually achieved the expected aims and impact.
Right. And in this kind of partnership, so Alex, just asking you a question that was posed to us by Mike Packham. It's been said, he says banks, but I suppose financial advisors generally. It's been said that the interest of banks and financial advisors in philanthropy is a way of obtaining more assets under management. Keziah is talking here about a partnership around working with other specialists to provide an ongoing service. From your perspective, is this about obtaining more assets under management?
Well, I think there's two ways of looking at this. You know, there's okay, well, you know, could we directly obtain assets under management by establishing a charitable trust and investing the funds within that charitable trust to provide a sort of an ongoing legacy for the client to support their charitable endeavours, or is it part of providing a holistic service to a client that actually brings a client more on board with you as an advisor? I don't agree with the fact that the only interest is in bringing funds under management. I think this is a much wider, that there are much wider benefits here, and there should be, because it isn't just about assets under management. It's about providing service to a client and putting the client at the heart of what you are trying to achieve, and that is act in their best interests. And part of acting in their best interests might be helping them identify that either they want to make a charitable gift and putting in place or facilitating the right introductions to help them make that charitable gift, and again from the tax side of things, you know, if they are making charitable gifts, are they doing it tax efficiently?
You raise an interesting point there. So you've mentioned a few times that for St James's Place, providing philanthropy advice is part of a holistic service.
It is.
And the assets under management, of course, are a component of that.
They can be.
They can be a component of that. I just wonder, I mean, we had a big regulatory change at the start of 2013 when RDR came in. The Retail Distribution Review requires that financial advisors have their clients pay for advice, and that can be an all-encompassing type of advice. Would you say that that has prompted a shift in attitude within the financial advice industry towards providing philanthropy advice as part of a wider spectrum of a holistic advice proposition?
I certainly think it has. I think it's had a very positive impact in terms of advisors now, or I think advisors before, but more so now, realise the value and the importance of advising their clients. But it's also helped them recognise and also helped clients appreciate that not one person can provide all the advice they need. If a client needs a will, they'll go to a solicitor and get a will drawn up. If they need advice with their tax return, they'll go to a tax advisor and pay for you know, sort of advice in respect of their tax return. If they need financial advice, they will pay for financial advice. And the same goes for philanthropy. If they are making charitable donations or they're gifting to charity, there may be a requirement to pay for that advice to ensure that they're maximising, not just, as I've said, on the reliefs and the structuring, but also in meeting their needs and objectives. It's the client's money, it's their hard-earned money. They want to do something good with it, and it's about helping the client achieve those objectives.
I think you raised an interesting point there, because again, one of the findings in the report is that the majority of clients, 73% of clients, are nervous about paying fees for philanthropy advice. They believe it should be on a not-for-profit or a zero-cost basis, which I think raises challenges for the advice industry generally. So, you know, within the financial advice model, obviously, if you're providing a holistic advice solution, it's much easier to kind of bring that service under that broader aegis.
Yes, and I think it is interesting when clients say or they believe they shouldn't be paying for philanthropy advice, because I in some respects I don't think clients perhaps fully understand what philanthropy advice is. And if you have got an individual who is making sizable contributions to charity, they may well be making it, and Allan raised the point earlier, they may well be making donations out of their surplus income, or you know, their earned income, and it might not necessarily be the most tax efficient way of making a gift to charity. Now, it's not just about ensuring the client is maximising on the gifting, but it's also looking at, well, actually, if you do have a more tax efficient strategy in place, you're realising more money to give to charity. So it's kind of a sort of a win-win situation. If you are being properly advised, everybody can benefit.
So the way that you describe it, we have both a proposition here which helps deepen the relationship.
Absolutely, yes.
But has also potentially commercial impacts as well.
Absolutely, yes.
Interesting.
Yes, it definitely does.
Allan, you're in a slightly different field, so the kind of advice that you provide is somewhat different. What would you say from a sort of commercial perspective are the advantages to you and to your team of providing philanthropy advice to clients?
I think there are a lot of points that have already been touched on, but the main one is the deepening relationship with the client and understanding the client's needs on a wider level. And whilst we give tax and accounting advice, there are lots of things that we don't do, as legal advice, investment advice, and things like that. And it's understanding the overall client situation. And philanthropy is, for many people, is a major part of it.
Polling question here. We would be very interested in your views as part of the audience as well. How comfortable would you be to advise your clients to pay for strategic philanthropy advice? Be very interested to see the views of the audience on this question as well. Moving on, again, I think we've touched on some of this, but there's a question from Scott Walker. Do the panel feel they can provide a complete solution on philanthropy to their clients? And if no, what areas do they feel are missing, and how can that gap be filled? Allan, I'm going to start with you on this question, because I think the kind of advice that tax professionals offer can really be quite tightly drawn often, and therefore my assumption is that you may seek support from third parties and other professionals when delivering a holistic solution to your clients.
Yeah, I think as mentioned earlier, the philanthropy is a very broad area, and it's also a hugely developing area. So it'd be dangerous for me to say that I think we can provide a complete solution. If you narrow it down to tax and the whole range of tax advantage ways you can have your philanthropic activities, and it's ranging from the simple gifts to charities and other people who have made money and they want to give back, but in a business sense, you could perhaps go down a completely different route in advising them. I think the other side of what I do involves the charities themselves, or the charitable companies themselves, and on the accounting side and that kind of thing. And I think if something could be increased, is that for other people in the market, perhaps there is a need for more professional advice on running some of these small charities. I can give as an example a friend of mine, not a client of Deloitte, who had this great vision to set up a school in Africa, and he's a tremendous individual, did lots of fundraising, and he got in with him 2 or 3 other people who were also very philanthropic, but none of them were business people, and there were lots of mistakes made and an awful lot of money lost.
Interesting. By
not actually having proper controls and running the charity as a business and having business things behind it. And that's not a Deloitte client, that's a personal experience I've had, where to pick up on the gap question that's Scott raised.
Keziah, I think you have a similar experience. What are your views on the kinds of advice that perhaps at the broader ends of the spectrum that clients need?
I think it is. I mean, we touched on it earlier. I think it is about partnering and collaboration. I don't think any of the professional services firms or those playing in the philanthropy space are able to deliver a complete and total solution in isolation. And I think it is about finding the best-in-class partners for that client. And as Alex touched at, putting the client at the centre of everything, it can only be that way. And I think in the same way that we advise clients that philanthropic capital is finite, you can't do everything on your own. So let's see where there are areas for collaboration. Let's see where there are areas for partnership. It's just the same, I think, at an organisational level. And I think as you know, we work increasingly with advisors, both in partnering with them to deliver client work, but also in helping advisors who are less sure of starting that conversation with clients about kind of philanthropy, helping them and kind of training them in a kind of, you know, philanthropy 101, you know, how to start that conversation, how to just to open the door a little bit.
Can you give us any examples, perhaps, of a client that you've worked with? I know that you have some common relationships here with Alex from St James's Place.
Maybe now would be a good time to talk about a client that we share, that Cath Philanthropy shares with St James's Place. Maybe Alex should start because it was a referral from St James's Place to Cath, so it's a kind of two-part story, isn't it?
Yes, it is, Cath. Yeah, and it's sort of the case study itself highlights how advisors can work with their clients and how the advice that a financial advisor can provide can really help cement the relationship, and the support that can be provided from Cath can also really add value. We had a client a couple of years ago who'd inherited a rather large property in London and was looking to sell the property, but with the sale proceeds, among other things, make a fairly sizable donation to charity. We worked as a team at St James's Place to advise the client, and in structuring how that giving was to be made, we structured it so as to maximise the client's income tax relief that would have been available on the gift, because had they made the gift in one tax year, they wouldn't have maximised on the tax relief because they hadn't paid sufficient income tax. So we structured it in a way so that the giving was to be made over a number of years, or over a couple of years, and in doing that, we then referred to the Charities Aid Foundation because the family themselves wanted advice on not only what they were to do with their charitable trust, but also how to incorporate the next generation and the next generation's desires in terms of setting up a charity and helping specific areas that they wanted to help. So from our perspective, they got the structuring maximised on the tax reliefs. We worked with the client's accountants, and then we handed over to the Charities Aid Foundation.
This was a great experience actually for us, and it's ongoing, which is fantastic. Just give it a bit more context on the kind of the human side. The family is a husband and wife and 3 grown-up children. The parents are very academic. That's the sphere of the world they work in. Very strong family values, I would say, and very smart in kind of thinking about what they wanted to achieve with this new philanthropic pot that had been put into the Cath Trust. We started work, so we set up the giving vehicle, the DAF, and then we started working, particularly with the parents, thinking about one of their children, their son, who was a very, very talented street artist, and incredibly creative, delightful, utterly charming guy, who wanted to use his skills and talents as a street artist to inspire and engage disaffected, disadvantaged youth, particularly kind of in London, around his own community where he grew up. And you know, I think it was lovely. It was using something that he had as an individual, that's something that he had to offer the world, which is fantastic. But what he lacked, as often is the way with creative people, but those kind of organisational skills. And I think his parents wanted him to receive some support and some direction, also kind of coaching and mentoring. They wanted to see their son fly. And so we kind of helped him. What he needed was a business plan. He had this idea about how is he going to achieve it. How is he going to establish himself as offering this service? How do you plug into it? Do you go to community groups? Do you go to youth clubs? Do you go to schools? Where are you going to do it? Under what kind of auspices? What's the kind of structure? So we worked with this young guy over a period of kind of 6 to 8 months, almost as a coach, mentor, business planner, I would say. And that's been fantastic, and that work is ongoing. And we continue to work with the family, and it may be that we do something similar with his siblings. And for me, this is a really powerful example of, as Alex just touched on, a family thinking about the next generation, thinking about how you, as I say, I think most families have quite strong values, but this family particularly, but how you build on that and how you kind of capture that. And I think philanthropy can be an incredibly powerful tool in achieving that, and increasingly we are seeing, and I think it picks up in the report, but other research that we've done, increasingly the next generation have a different viewpoint. They're wanting to engage more, they want to be more hands-on, they want to be more informed, it's more immediate. So I think this case study for us was perfect, and it was lovely. It felt, and it continues to feel, very, very much like a proper partnership with the client at the centre, and St James's Place, and then Cath Philanthropy working together.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. It does, and it's very much helped the advisor as well cement the relationship with the family. And just picking up on a point that Keziah made there, it isn't just about clients' estate planning and financial needs. It's also about this issue of succession planning, introducing the next generation into financial management in a way, because that is part of what philanthropy very much fits into.
And I presume also, as the relationship is ongoing, that you continue to manage the assets?
We continue to manage the assets, and whilst in this particular situation, it's opened the opportunity for the partner to acquire additional funds under management, which is great for all parties involved. That isn't necessarily the key driver. The key driver here is the partner wanting to provide a service to the client and facilitate the right people getting involved.
Interesting. We are going to move to questions in a few moments, so if any members of the audience have got questions they want to submit, please do so. In the meantime, just really to wrap up the conversation that we've been having so far, it seems to me that there are a number of points that are coming through very strongly from the observations that each of you are making. Firstly, that the range of scenarios that clients come to you is very, very broad. And so there is a degree of complexity here that all advisors, regardless of which discipline you're in, there's a degree of complexity to deal with. Secondly, and I think very closely linked to that, that there's no no advisor can be expected to do all of this on their own. And so forging partnerships across the professional advice spectrum, you're all nodding, which is great. Forging relationships across the advice spectrum is important. And I think thirdly, there are different ways of delivering philanthropy advice on a commercial basis, whether there are fees involved or whether you're talking about extending and expanding relationships perhaps across generations or across a wider range of assets. I mean, these are the messages that seem to be coming through very strongly from your comments. I don't know if we have any questions from the audience yet. Okay. One final area then I would like to touch on is around client appetite. So is client appetite growing, would you say, for philanthropy advice? This is an area really that has been discussed within professional services as a separate discipline probably for the past 5 or 10 years. But are you also seeing on the demand side that clients are coming to you more frequently with questions than perhaps they were a few years ago?
From our perspective, I'd certainly say I don't know whether it's a case of more clients are giving, or more clients are willing to disclose that they are giving and appreciating and recognising that they perhaps need advice in respect of their philanthropic strategy. A lot of clients, and I think Allan alluded to this earlier, a lot of clients tend to deal with their charitable giving in their will, without appreciating that actually it might be more advantageous both financially and also from a personal perspective, because you're actually alive to see the benefits of your giving, actually to give during your lifetime, and to set up that legacy whilst you're alive and can see it working. So from that perspective, we are having a lot more conversations in that respect with clients.
Interesting. Allan, really just to pick up on that, Alex references there that giving in the will is perhaps the traditional way. Are you finding more clients that come into you talking about lifetime giving?
I think there is a greater appetite to actually get involved in philanthropic activities, the major one being giving. And it's stimulating the questions sometimes, where having a broader discussion around what the individual wants to do, I'm personally finding is increasing.
Right. And is that among younger clients? Has the age demographic come down as well? Because I assume conversations about giving in your will start when clients are in their 40s or their 50s, or maybe perhaps even in their 60s. Are you also finding that younger private clients are coming to you with questions around philanthropic strategies?
If you look at philanthropic sorry, in a wider sense, yes, they are. There's a lot of people who've got a sense of giving back, who have made their fortune, or for whatever better word for it, and then they do want to give something back to other people, and it's talking around that, which is I find quite a really enjoyable discussion often about what they want to do.
Interesting. Keziah, I would imagine you're right in the thick of this as well.
We've seen definitely an increase in both clients establishing trusts with us, charitable trusts with us, and also wanting to talk more, wanting to find out more. I think there's very much a growing consciousness of philanthropy. It's around more, it's talked about more, it's in the press more. I think with the advances in technology, the issues in the world are becoming more, we hear about them more immediately, I think, than ever before. I think with shifts of the investment spectrum, where you've got kind of grant giving, so gifting of money at one end, and then kind of social investment, and then social impact investing, all the way through to mainstream. We're seeing that spectrum being stretched quite a lot. I suspect in kind of 10 years' time it'll be stretched even further. I also suspect that whilst there's an increase of intelligence and information out there, whether it be on how to put together a strategy, whether it be on maternal health in Botswana, or something going on in India, there's huge amounts of information and intelligence out there, almost again kind of overwhelming. So on the one hand, there's too much out there, and it's difficult to kind of filter it, I think, from a client perspective. And I always think there's always going to be change. I think in 5 years' time there may be ways to filter that. There may be some amazing thing where you get the information just that you want, which kind of goes back to one of the questions that came up earlier about how do clients create a shortlist. But I think overall we are definitely seeing an appetite for more, and the conversation it just cropping up more, and we're seeing it in hard facts as well, in terms of the numbers of clients establishing trusts with us and the values of the funds going into them.
Interesting. So all three of you say more demand from clients. It certainly also seems like there's greater awareness among advisors to provide this kind of solution. We have literally just a few seconds left before the end of the broadcast, but the title of the report is why talking about philanthropy transforms advisor-client relationships. I think a question really for you, Allan and Alex, really to conclude this has it been your experience that having a broader conversation with clients about their giving and their giving strategy helps to transform the relationships you have with them?
Definitely.
And I would agree, as long as it's positioning it as to why you're having that conversation. You're having that conversation because you want to ensure the client is properly advised, that they are maximising on what they're looking to achieve, and it's a nice conversation to have. Yes. If a client is giving to charity, it's a really enjoyable, or it should be an enjoyable conversation, an easy conversation to have with a client, not necessarily with the end game of financial gain, but with a view to establishing that relationship.
What we often find actually from advisors like you two is that once they start integrating that conversation, they find that that can be quite a transformative moment with the client, because suddenly the client becomes quite passionate and engaged and animated, and some of those layers get stripped away, and you're actually seeing the kind of more genuine, more authentic part of the client. So I mean, like, again, that's definitely what we're hearing with the advisors that we work with.
Interesting. We've more or less run out of time, but I would just like to let the audience know that we will be emailing a copy of the report and the webinar recording after we finish in a moment. And if you do have any feedback, please do let us know any of your comments around the discussion that we've had today. But in summary, I mean, I would just conclude, it seems from all of the discussion we're having today that as advisors, we should be becoming increasingly comfortable to engage our clients in discussions around philanthropy, that they will probably welcome the conversation just as much as we should. Thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you, Catherine.